Hello and welcome back to the Second Chance to Live channel. I'm happy to see that you decided to stop by to watch this video presentation. Today's video presentation is going to be the first part in a three-part video presentation series of an article that I wrote in 2018 surrounding the topic of discovering a new normal after experiencing a brain injury. Before we get started with that article, I want to share something with you that I too need to remember. You and I are not our brain injuries. We are not a label. We are not a stereotype. We are not a stigmatization. We are not a diagnosis or a prognosis. We were never meant to live in a box of other people's expectations or lack of expectations. Instead, we can create hope in our lives a little at a time by not giving up. To read the article, I'll put my glasses on and bring up the article. I want to thank you for your time. Here's the article. Discovering a New Normal After Experiencing a Brain Injury, Part 1. I recently was interviewed by a professional who works within the brain injury industry. During the interview, he asked 26 questions. Among the questions he asked, what comes to mind when you hear the term new normal after experiencing brain injury? Below is the answer to that question with details. Because of the length of the article, I divided the article into three parts. I would encourage you to read each of the three parts in order as each part builds on the next part. The same with watching each of the three parts of this video presentation series. So here's the first part of the article. So my experience with a brain injury. As you may have read in my About page, I sustained an open skull fracture in an automobile accident in 1967. When I was 10 years old, the open skull fracture resulted in right frontal lobe damage, a severe brain bruise with brainstem involvement. I also fractured my left femur, or thigh bone, which is the largest bone in our bodies. I remained in a coma for 3 weeks and was not expected to live the night of the accident. I was also not expected to succeed beyond high school academically. The expectation was shared with my parents after I underwent 2 EEGs and a battery of cognitive, social, and psychosocial testing at the age of 10. My parents did not share the expectations of these cognitive, social, and psychosocial testing with me at the time. What I shared with the professionals when asked about the term new normal. I believe that life is likened to being on a train. The train runs down what I envision as the track of life. Along the track, I come to various places that look familiar to me. And then the day came when I experienced my traumatic brain injury. On that day, unbeknownst to me, a switch was pulled and my life headed down a different track of the railroad, the track of my life. Experiencing its brain injury is likened to being on a new and different set of railroad tracks. The track that once looked familiar no longer looks familiar to me. Although being switched to a different track wasn't my choice, I now find my life traveling in a different direction. Although what I now see myself traveling as being unfamiliar, I realize that I can't get back on the other track of the railroad, the track before my brain injury. So accepting something does not mean that I like it. Although after 20 years of getting and being fired, terminated, let go from many jobs, I reached the bottom. A bottom in my life when I realized I could no longer deny my reality. Although I was able to obtain my undergraduate degree in 10 years and my master's degree in 3.5 years, I could not keep a job. After applying for SSDI twice in Florida and once in North Carolina, and completing 2 Department of Vocational Rehabilitation programs, one in Florida and one in North Carolina, I was deemed to be unemployable and my third SSDI application was approved in 1999. In my experience, even after my third application was approved by the Social Security Administration, I still had a difficult time accepting the impact of my traumatic brain injury. How could I be able to obtain my undergraduate degree and my master's degree and not be unemployable? But there was nothing I could do to change that reality. To be able to accept my new normal after my brain injury. In my experience, to be able to accept that I was traveling down a different track that I did not like, I had to grieve what I could not change. What I found was that I needed to confront what I could not do, my denial. I then needed to allow myself to be angry for what I realized I could not change. I needed to try to disprove several more times that I was not impacted by my traumatic brain injury, which is the bargaining stage of the denial of the grieving process. Finally, I needed to allow myself to be in a place of despondency or depression. I needed to be despondent until I became sick and tired of being sick and tired. Sick and tired before I could begin to confront my denial and begin to grieve my process or go through the grieving process. In my experience, I had to move through the stages of grieving, which are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Move through the grieving process before I could begin to accept what I could not change. This is the end of part 1 of the video presentation of the article. I want to thank you again for your time. Before I go, let me encourage you with this. Please do not give up on yourself, a loving God, or your process, because more will be revealed with time. The pieces of the puzzle will come together in the correct order and at the right time. I'll say so long for now. Again, make sure to listen to part 2, which I will be making shortly. Thank you.